Hi, I'm John. The autumn sun shone through the tall oak trees, casting soft shadows on our large family estate. Today, the place was filled with the chatter of relatives as we held our annual family reunion. The warm air smelled of roasting meat and fresh pie. My wife, Anna, who was very pregnant and glowing, stood beside me, smiling as we greeted cousins, uncles, and aunts arriving in large groups. "Honey, isn't it wonderful to have everyone here?" I asked. Anna squeezed my hand, her eyes scanning the crowd. "It is, but stay close. You know how your mom can be," she whispered. I noticed my mother, Helen, moving through the crowd, her eyes sharp and observant. As the day went on, the polite greetings turned into deeper conversations. Julia, my cheerful sister-in-law, joined Anna and me near the edge of the garden, offering some relief from my mother's watchful gaze. "So, John, that new case you're working on sounds tough, huh?" Julia asked, trying to shift the topic, which I appreciated. "Yeah, it's complicated, but it's nothing compared to handling family dynamics," I joked, though my eyes drifted toward where my mother was standing with my aunts, occasionally glancing at us. Anna noticed and tensed. "I wish she would just say what's on her mind. This silent judgment is exhausting," she muttered. "She just wants what's best for me, or at least that's what she thinks," I sighed. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered around a long table on the lawn for dinner. The air was filled with the sound of conversation, the clinking of silverware, and glasses raised in toasts. It was almost perfect, until my mother sat directly across from Anna and me. "John, I've noticed you've been busy with work lately. I hope you're still making time to ensure Anna is comfortable," Helen said, her voice sharp enough to make a few relatives stop eating for a moment. "Mom, Anna's doing great, right, dear?" I said, placing my hand on Anna's. "Yes, Helen, I'm fine and capable of looking after myself, but thank you for your concern," Anna replied, politely but firmly. Helen's lips thinned as she paused, her fork in the air. "Well, with the baby coming, you can't be too careful. I read an article the other day about how important it is for expectant mothers to avoid stress." "Really, Helen, I'm fine. John's been wonderful, and Julia has been a great help, too," Anna said, trying to shift the conversation. Julia quickly caught on and jumped in. "Absolutely, and wait till you see the nursery we've been working on. John, maybe you should show your mom the photos. It's coming together really nicely." And with that, the dinner continued. Helen's comments became sharper with each passing moment, subtly criticizing Anna's choices, from her diet to her decision to keep working late into her pregnancy. The tension at the table grew, and relatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Finally, I stood up, tapping my glass to get everyone's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," I said, "to family, by blood and by bond. May we always support and uplift each other, no matter what." Everyone raised their glasses in agreement, and for a brief moment, the mood lightened, but Helen's tight smile as she sipped her wine told me that the evening wasn't going to end peacefully. As the sky darkened, I had a feeling the real trouble was yet to come. Later in the evening, the warm atmosphere of the reunion started to fade, replaced by unease. The laughter and happy conversations that had filled the grand hall earlier were now replaced with a tense silence as we all moved toward the dining area for dessert. "Anna, wait till you try the lemon tart I brought. It's Julia's favorite," Aunt Margie said brightly, trying to lift the mood. "Oh, I'm sure it's wonderful. Julia's been talking about your baking all day," Anna replied, smiling as she linked arms with Julia. The two of them headed upstairs together, their dresses similar in style. But behind them, Helen's eyes narrowed as she mistook Julia for Anna. Her steps quickened, driven by a mix of resentment and a misguided sense of protectiveness. "I need to speak with you now, Anna," Helen called out, her voice sharp and urgent, but she was really calling out to Julia. Julia turned around, confused. "Helen, I think you," she started, but before she could finish, Helen, acting on impulse, pushed Julia. Thinking it was Anna, Julia lost her balance and fell down the stairs. The sound of her fall filled the hall, followed by horrified gasps as she hit the ground with a thud. "Julia!" Anna screamed, rushing down the stairs as the family stood in shock. Helen froze at the top of the staircase, her face pale as she realized the terrible mistake she had made. I pushed through the crowd, my instincts as a lawyer kicking in despite the personal horror unfolding in front of me. "Someone call an ambulance," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. John's command cut through the chaos as he knelt beside Julia, assessing her injuries. "Why would you do this, Helen? She's your niece. Anna's voice trembled with a mix of rage and fear. Helen, flustered and stammering, waved her hands helplessly. I thought she was you. I just wanted to talk. By pushing her down the stairs? John's voice was cold, his eyes searching his mother's face for an explanation that made sense. Moments later, Julia was taken away on a stretcher, and the house fell into a heavy silence. John pulled Helen aside, his tone a mix of disbelief and authority. What's going on, Mom? Your behavior tonight wasn't just out of line, it was dangerous. What did you think Aita was going to do? It's all those articles and talk shows, Helen muttered, wringing her hands. They say some women trap men with pregnancies. I thought she was manipulating you. Manipulating me? Anna's my wife. We're expecting a baby together. How could you believe such nonsense about her? John's frustration mounted as he ran a hand through his hair, struggling to understand how the mother he once knew had become someone driven to hurt out of irrational fears. I got scared, and seeing her, or who I thought was her, brought it all up, Helen admitted, her voice breaking. John shook his head, trying to process her words. Anna needs me, and Julia deserves justice. We're going to sort this out, but right now, I can't even look at you. He turned back to Anna, who stood by the door, her eyes red and swollen from tears. John's resolve hardened as they both waited for news about Julia's condition. The night air felt heavy with everything left unsaid, and the trust that had once bonded the family now lay shattered. The joyful reunion had dissolved into a harsh, sobering reality. I'm not implying anything, I've seen it. The cake incident was just the beginning. Why do you favor Maddie over Sophie? I pressed, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Linda hesitated, her facade cracking. It's complicated, Hannah, you wouldn't understand. I need to understand, Linda, for Sophie's sake. She's your granddaughter too, I said, my resolve strengthening. The conversation was tense, with Linda alternating between denial and vague explanations. I stood my ground, making it clear that this behavior had to change. As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of emotions. The confrontation had been difficult but necessary. I had stood up for my daughter, and that was what mattered. Now, it was up to Linda to reflect on her actions and make amends, but deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of a longer journey. At the annual family gathering, the atmosphere was festive, but I was a bundle of nerves. As I moved through the crowd, making small talk, my eyes were constantly on Linda, waiting for the right moment. She was laughing and chatting, seemingly carefree, which only strengthened my resolve. Finally, I found my chance. Linda was alone, refilling her drink. I took a deep breath and went up to Linda. Linda, can we talk in private? I asked. She looked surprised but nodded and followed me to a quieter corner of the room. I want to talk about Sophie and Maddie, I started. I've noticed that you treat them very differently. It's not fair to Sophie. Linda looked defensive. You're imagining things, Hannah. This is ridiculous. No, I'm not. Others have noticed too. The way you focus on Maddie and barely acknowledge Sophie is clear as day. It's hurting Sophie, and I won't stand for it. The conversation was intense. Linda kept denying and making weak excuses, but I stood firm, presenting all the evidence I had collected. As our voices got louder, some family members started to listen in, moving closer to hear. This needs to stop, Linda. You're playing favorites, and it's harmful, I said, my voice rising with emotion. Finally, Linda's facade cracked. All right, maybe I've been more attentive to Maddie, but it's only because she needs more support. That's no excuse for neglecting Sophie, I said. She's your granddaughter too. The room fell silent as family members listened closely. Linda looked around, realizing her actions were being exposed. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she stammered, her voice shaky. It's not just about intention, Linda, it's about impact. Your actions have consequences, I said. Linda tried to apologize and make excuses, but it was too late. The truth was out. As the confrontation ended, the family buzzed with whispers and shock. It was clear they saw Linda in a new light. In the days that followed, I noticed a change. Linda became more isolated, and her usual charm couldn't hide the truth revealed at the gathering. People started treating me with more respect, recognizing the strength it took to stand up for my daughter. Sophie, blissfully unaware of the details, seemed happier and more at ease. That was what mattered most to me. The confrontation had been tough, but it opened the family's eyes to Linda's true colors. It was a turning point that I hoped would lead to a healthier and more honest family dynamic in the future. In the aftermath of the confrontation with Linda, my life began to change significantly. My career as a graphic designer took off with new creativity and recognition. Clients were thrilled with my work, leading to more referrals and exciting projects. More importantly, Sophie and I found a deeper sense of happiness and peace in our daily lives. Her laughter filled our home, showing how much our lives had improved. "Mom, you're the coolest mom ever. Look at all these people loving your designs," Sophie said one evening, her eyes wide with excitement as she looked at my social media feed. I smiled, feeling a strong sense of accomplishment. "We make a great team, don't we, sweetie? Together, we can achieve anything." Meanwhile, Linda's situation within the family was changing drastically. The once respected matriarch was now facing the consequences of her actions. I heard about her struggles from family members, who spoke with varying degrees of pity and disdain. Linda tried to organize family events, but the responses were often lukewarm. Invitations were politely declined, and her calls and messages often went unanswered. At a family barbecue, I saw firsthand how Linda's status had fallen. She tried to mingle, but people responded with polite nods and quick exits. Gone were the days when family members sought her advice or laughed at her jokes. Instead, they exchanged uncomfortable glances and found reasons to walk away. "Did you see how Aunt Linda was practically ignored when she tried to join the card game?" one of my cousins whispered to me. "Yeah, it's sad, but after what happened with Sophie and me, people are seeing her true colors," I replied, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness about the situation. The change in how the family treated me was noticeable. I went from being just Linda's daughter-in-law to being seen as a strong, independent person who stood up for her child. My opinions were valued, and my company was appreciated, a sharp contrast to Linda's growing isolation. As Sophie's next birthday approached, I was determined to make it special and drama-free. I organized a small, intimate party at our home. The joy and laughter that filled our house that day were a far cry from the previous year's chaos. "This is the best birthday ever, Mom, you're the best," Sophie said, surrounded by her friends. I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and relief. We had not only overcome the challenges of the past but had emerged stronger and happier. That night, after the guests had left and Sophie was tucked into bed, I sat alone, reflecting on the past year. It had been a journey of immense growth and empowerment. Standing up to Linda had been tough, but it had paved the way for a new life where Sophie and I could thrive without manipulation and favoritism. A text from Linda interrupted my thoughts. "I realize I've lost a lot. I'm sorry for everything. Maybe one day we can talk." Reading her message, I felt a mix of emotions. There was a sense of justice in seeing the consequences of her actions, but also a hint of sadness for the strained family bond. As I turned off the lights and settled into bed, I felt a deep sense of contentment and peace. Sophie and I had faced our challenges with courage and emerged stronger. Our journey was a powerful testament to resilience, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. With our story coming to a close, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think Hannah made the right decision in handling the situation with Linda? Was there a better way to address the favoritism and its impact on Sophie? Or was Hannah's approach justified given the circumstances? This situation touches on deep family dynamics and the choices we make to protect our loved ones. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and the journey we've shared, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Your support means a lot and helps keep these stories coming. Thank you for watching and being a part of our story today.